All right, it's game time. Who doesn't like a good game? Obviously, if you guys have been following me, I'm a big sports fan, especially college football. And it's December 2024. I'm a little bummed because my favorite team isn't in the college football playoffs, but it is fun to watch nonetheless. So I'm excited. I'm going to watch some this weekend. So I've been thinking about the process of taking a flip or any project you're doing from start to finish and how it might have an analogy to a game. So we're going to talk about 6 steps in setting up your game and how it relates to maybe an analogy of a football game or a basketball game that I think will make sense to you and you can follow along. So I'm going to kind of go somewhat general with this, highlighting the 6 key points and some of those subcategories inside of the 6 key points. But as a value add to you guys, I have a 3-page kind of checklist and template that I'm using that has a lot more detail about things to remember and things to go off of as it relates to this preparing your game for the flip. And we've talked about some of this before in other videos. But number one, just like any football game or basketball game, if you're the coach or the general manager, you got to set up your game. And you got to set up the game ahead of time. You got to get your strategy. So for me, what this means in a flip is I want to have, before I start, I want to have my process set up. I want to have my Google Drive, my Asana, whatever I'm using to track my projects. I want to have those things ready to go so that I can put in the information along the way and record and archive in one place all those things that I'm going to need. So I'm going to set up my Google Drive for here's my before purchase. Here's my estimate of what I think this is going to look like. Here's my rehab folder or my budget. Here's my final scorecard, which we'll talk about. I want to have that all set up. I kind of want to have the game pieces laid out before we play the game so that once we start playing the game, we're not like, well, wait, where's the football? Where's the basketball? Did anyone bring a basketball? We want to have that pre-stuff done ahead of time. So that's step number 1. Step number 2 is you got to prepare your scorecard, or think of it like your starting lineup, your roster, like who's playing quarterback today. So some of that for me is understanding all the details of the property and having that written down up front. Like, what do we think the ARV of this house is going to be? What do we think the rehab's going to be? What do we think the purchase price is going to be? Okay, this is in West Valley City. We got to be prepared. Where are utilities coming from? Who's doing the gas? Who's doing the water? All those kind of things. We want to know who the players and the different components of the game are. We want to start prepping, like what rehab crew are we going to use? Who are we going to use for plumbing, electrical, whatever it might be. Kind of your overall game plan setup, preparing your scorecard so you can track it along the way. Because just think, if you started the game and you actually didn't keep score, one, it would be very, very confusing. But how would you know at the end, as the game gets towards the end, like if you should go for 2 points instead of 1, if you're not keeping score real time? The same is true with a rehab or a project. If you don't know where you're at every point in the project, how can you pivot and make decisions along the way if it's going or not going the way that you thought? Okay, so number 3, in-game stats, real time. So as you start playing the game, meaning let's say you close on the property, you want to keep your scorecard going from day 1. So what I like to do is make sure you record and memorialize on your scorecard or your spreadsheet or your realized numbers what you spent in closing costs, title fees, loan points, loan interest. And you want to save those documents in the correct folder that you set up during your initial game plan. Because you want to be able to start tracking like your interest calculator, so you know where you stand with what loan, your loan that you need to pay off from the get-go as time goes on, so you know how much time's left in the game, what the score is, or rather how much interest you owe, how much money you've spent so far, to just kick off the deal and close on the deal. Okay, so number 4, you need to have a highlight reel. So any game you're playing, people are taking photos, they're showing replays. And for me, that means, are you taking really good before photos? Are you documenting the in-progress photos? I'm excited to share my highlight reel of a current townhome project I'm building, where we have the raw ground and now we have time-lapse photos of the construction of the 20 townhomes. Number 1, it gives you confidence and it makes it fun. It's also a good way to tell the story and show your success and what you've done so that you can raise money from other people. Maybe it'll help you buy another house. But having a good highlight reel of the before and after and kind of the middle part of the progress really is an awesome way to do it. So have that highlight reel, show your successes, show the transformation and the creation you're doing in the projects that you're working on. Number 5, we're kind of coming to the end. You want to have a final scorecard. So the reason that the final scorecard is going to be easy at this point is because step number 3 was the in-game stats. You've been keeping track all the way along how much you've spent on plumbing. Okay, that's done. How much did cabinets cost? How much? And you're also comparing that against when you set up your game plan, what was your original budget? And what did your original scorecard look like? So along the way, if you keep score every week, every month on your project, and sometimes it needs to be every day, there will be no surprises at the end of the day as if you won or lost the game. There's so many times I talk to my borrowers or other investors that maybe they closed on a flip like a week ago, and it's like, yeah, we still don't quite know how we did on it. And that's ridiculous because you need to have all that going along the way so that you can know what your scorecard is the day that you close. So you should have all your rehab numbers locked up. You should know what your final utility bills will, what your final title costs were, commissions. If you owe money to other people, where's that going? Or if you're splitting profits with people, where's that going? And part of the original setting up the game plan in number 1 is if you do have other people involved, get all of their info ahead of time. So when it's done, you know where to send money to, you know who's getting paid what, so that when that game's over, you can move immediately to number 6, which is the final step, which is your post-game analysis. Imagine you're the coach or whatever being interviewed after the game, you know, in the locker room about like, well, hey, how did that game go? You can then give yourself and your team a post-game analysis, reflect back, okay, what went right? What went wrong? Did we use the right contractors? Should we have done the rehab in a different order? You know, did we waste too much money on interest? You know, did we price it right? How was our listing strategy? Just reflecting back on what bad and went wrong. So what? So you can improve and get better on the next one. So if you want my more detailed version of this, drop me a DM. I'll get it to you. We can connect. And I hope your games are good, and I hope that you win. Thanks for watching.